Hello, hello. Today I'm going to talk about how to use Trello to organize your cross-stitch projects. So Trello is a tool for organizing information, especially projects. It has this format where you have lists, and each list can have cards in them, and you can move the cards around. So, for instance, I have Woodland Fox by Catkin and Lily, and I've purchased the materials so then I can move it over here to Kitted. Like that. So you can move a project through the process that you want to take it through. So why did I choose Trello? For me, it just seemed easier than other options. So a document has a very rigid structure. You're not able to move things between lists as easily. You can copy and paste, but it becomes very clumsy so quickly when you have a very long list. So I didn't like that. I originally started with a document of sorts and just having a list, and that did not last very long. I find this to be more comprehensive than a spreadsheet. So in a spreadsheet, you're not able to have the images in your rows, so you can't see what the list item is. It ends up just being this big swirl of words, and so I found that a less useful option. With Trello, you get a robust free account that provides all the tools that you're going to need for managing cross-stitch projects. Their paid tools are usually like collaborative things. I think there's a calendar view that you can get with a paid tool, but I don't need that. So, and also it's available on all the devices. Android, iPhone, iPad, Macintosh, PC, whatever you have, Trello will work. You can go online to a website and look at it. So it's very convenient to be able to look at on whatever device I have available in the moment. Okay, so let's look at how information is organized a little bit more closely. You have a workspace, and you can have a shared workspace, which so you can share things with other people, and then they can interact with your boards, and there's a setting on your board for what level of stuff they can do with it, whether they can edit it or just read it. And then each board would ideally be focused on something specific. So I have here my cross-stitch projects. On your board are lists. These are the things across the top. So I have wish list, purchased pattern, kitted, whip, finished stitching, fully finished, permanent display. These are my lists. And then I have a card for each project. So any given project, let's just do a little play. So let's say I purchased the Japanese octagon box by Chatelaine. So then I move that from wish list to purchased patterns. And you can rearrange things and say, oh, I'm going to do the Fisherman's Prayer before I do the Japanese octagon box, if that's how you want to do things. So it's very flexible and very easy to put things in an order that is useful and meaningful to you as a user. Okay, so let's go over some just basic skills. So for instance, I want to add a card. So I own this cross-stitch book called Cross-Stitch Inspirations by Sue Cook. And inside of this book is this pattern called a Gaelic blessing. So I'm going to add a card under purchased pattern. All right. Gaelic Blessing. Okay, so that has created a new card. When I open it, I can now add a lot of different things to here. So under description, I would say from cross stitch inspiration by Sue Cook. And then you can put in here, for instance, your fabric that you use, your threads. You can list out a conversion if you do a conversion. You can put your start date, your finish date, anything that you want to put that's text. You have 16,384 characters. I don't know. It's sufficient for what I want. And then down here we have attachments. So I'm going to add a photo. Where'd it go? Here it is. Okay. And if I go up to the top, I can add that photo as the cover, so that it will show up on my card on the list. Another way that you can add a new card is to set up a template and then just copy that template and create your card from there. So over here in wish list, I have created an example template. And I have on here so that I wouldn't have to type everything out again, and also to help me remember the things that I want to put. So I would have fabric, floss, started stitching, finished stitching, and then I put in an example checklist. My checklist is just, I wouldn't actually use this. I don't see the point. Maybe some of y'all have creative checklist uses that I haven't thought of, but anyways, so to use the template, let's scroll back up to the top. Okay, to use the template, you're going to copy card. All right, and I'm going to put it under, again, purchased pattern. We'll do another pattern from my cross stitch book and copy. All right, so here's my new card. So I can put here, what is this? The Fruits of the Spirit. I like to put the designer in the title because I think that's the best way to be able to sort by designer. And then none of this other stuff really particularly matters, except I would like to add the photo and set that as the cover. Okay, so now I have added a new card to my purchase pattern list. Another thing you can do is add and organize your lists. So, for instance, I suspect that I will want a list for things that I'm displaying for Christmas. So I'll put Christmas display. Now I have a new list, so anything that I've fully finished and that I want to be displaying at Christmas, I can add that card to my Christmas display list. You also can reorganize your list by holding it and dragging. So if you want to change your order, you can. Okay, let's explore cards a little bit more in depth now. So if we look at Woodland Fox by Catkin and Lily, I have added the PDF pattern to my card. So this is part of why I like Trello so much. I can put everything in one place. On this one card, I have my pattern, that I can put the sample photo. When I finish it, I can put a photo of my finished work. I can put in the description all of the details that I personally am interested in. So some other options, some things that I'm not using but that you could include checklists. So you can make, and like, I don't know, all I can think of are real pathetic checklists, like buy supplies, start stitching, you know, frame the item, whatever. That's the best kind of checklist I've come up with. But if you have a checklist that you want, you can put it in there, you know. You can also make and add labels to your cards. So you go here to labels. I've made some example labels. So woodland fox, I would say that's autumn. And you can make new labels with the little plus here. Let's say perhaps, what was I gonna say? Like framed. So if you wanted to do a labeling scheme based on how it's going to be displayed, you could do that. So this is an autumn season and it will be framed. And I can have, you know, as many labels as I want on this at once. There's also start date and due date. I don't see the point in that. I don't know. That's up to you. If you want to, you can put in there. I guess you could put in there when you started and then for your due date when you actually finished. And that would work fine. And you can add members, but again, I don't see the utility in that for your own personal cross-stitch projects. I guess if you're doing like a round robin and you're working on a project with 4 other people, then you could all be a member on the same card. That might be a use case where that could come in. But aside from that, usually it's just you yourself doing your stitching, right? There's not any great reason for adding members. So between all of that, I'm quite fond of Trello. Next, I'll take you through this bottom little icons. So the first one is a filter. You can filter by the title of the card. So for instance, if I want to see everything from Anna Matvieva in my library, I type in Anna and there it is. You also can filter by members on your card, by labels. So that's where labels can be handy, especially if you have a very large library and you want to just see all your fancy ladies at once. You can put your fancy lady label, choose that. So you can just choose it from the list and then it will show you your matching cards. You can also go by due date, which again is not anything that I have a use for, but if you want to put due dates on your projects, that's an option. And then you can sort them by when they're due. All right, let's exit out of there. So then you have this notifications. This is mostly for collaborative things. Like if you have other members on your cards or your boards, they can make comments, they can make changes, and you would get alerted to what they're doing. The only thing on here that is potentially useful to a single user is that if you've put due dates, then they will give you notifications. That's the only thing there. So finally, we have settings. You can star your board, which on the home page will make it show up at the top of your list of boards. I don't have enough boards for this to be relevant or important. If you have a lot of boards, then starring the ones that you want to use the most makes sense. You can change your visibility. So I just have mine set for me. I'm the only one who uses this board. You can add people to your workspace and then share the board with anybody you've added to your workspace. Or you also can make your board public, and you can make a link to your board and share it with people, and they can come and look at your board and they can copy it. And then when they copy it, it retains everything, all of the cards and everything. And then they can move forward and use it in their own space without changing your original board. Okay, so to do that, you have this share button, and copy makes a link to the board. This button here copies the board, the little square with the little line. You can duplicate your board. I don't want to do that right now. And then these dots here take us to the more fun stuff, which is you name your board. You do that when you set it up. You choose which workspace it's in. You can change those things at any time. And then you can choose a background, and it can be a color or a photo. For this, I did not want a photo because all of my cards will have photos. That's the whole idea. But I like the colors, and they have these gradients, so you can have a really pretty gradient background, or they also have some solid colors. So whatever floats your boat. Actually, I like that one. I'm gonna keep it teal now. Then you can show your card covers or not. So if I click this, then see all my photos go away, and then they come back when I turn it back on. You can edit your labels. Watching has to do with what alerts you get. If you're not watching the board, you won't get as many notifications. You can email things to your board. I'm not using that. We're not going into that. Okay, so now this one's interesting. So there's an archive. You can archive your cards and your lists. And at first I was like, I don't have any purpose for this, but actually I thought of one. So if you have an item that you decide to UFO, it's an unfinished object and you don't want to look at it on your list, you can archive your card. It will go into your archive, so it still exists, and you can unarchive it later if you so choose. But as long as you have it UFO'd, you're not ever going to work on it again in your mind, then you can archive it. Let's see. Visibility we already went over. And then there's how can you join. You can close your board, which we're not getting into that. Anyways, so those are your settings. You can add members. You can write a description for your board. Here, so completed status on card fronts. Let's turn that on. So that makes this little dot, and if you click the dot, then it like checks your card off. I don't have a use for that on this board. I use it on some other boards. But that is an option if that's something that you want. And then you also have this choice to archive cards marked complete. So if your choice is that you want to archive completed things, then you could do that. Then there's power-ups, which I think are paid things, and then your activity, right? So the main relevant to cross-stitch project management are changing your board background, naming your board, potentially your completed status, and then setting up your labels. So I'd like to talk for a minute a little bit higher level about how you might go about organizing your own information in a way that works for you, because there are so many different ways that you could go about it. And I think that the labels in particular are offering some interesting options. So with your labels, you can choose a color, and there are, I should have done that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 times 6 is 30. So 30 color options. I don't know, let's call this spring. All right, so let's try adding one. Let's see. What feels fancy? I don't know. Let's do purple. Okay. Fancy. Ladies, done. Does it add? Okay, it does. So you can keep adding labels. So we could put like, oh, bother. Oh, full coverage. Let's see what color. What color sounds good for full coverage? I don't know. Let's do this color. Done. All right, you get the idea. So you can have these labels that you put on your cards that allow you to quickly and easily see which things you're most interested in. And it looks like you can add up to 30, but don't quote me on that. So your lists are semi-static on your board. You can easily move your cards between your lists. A card can only be in one list at a time. You can put multiple labels on your card, and labels are slightly more difficult to change, but not outrageously so. So for instance, if you wanted a focus category, you could make a list for your focus projects and put them there, or you can make a focus label and label them with it, and then you could turn it on and off. Either way, I think for that would work just fine, and it's just how you want to do it. So the other thing you can do with your lists, so I thought about some other ways that people stitch. So people who have an outrageous number of whips, you might make multiple whip lists. You might make your focus list, your Halloween list, your fancy lady list, or maybe you organize it by, like some people have rotation, like they have focus, they have rotation, and then they have like on hold. So you can make your lists for that. And then similarly, I think a lot of people are happy up to finished stitching. And if that's you, that's great. You stitched it and you're happy. That's done. For me, I would like to fully finish. And then because I know myself, I know that I will do that and then just have it like sitting somewhere. I need to display it. So I made myself purposely this permanent display list to remind myself that after I've framed or made the pillow or whatever, I need to put it on display. And then, like I said, I think I will have some seasonal lists for display where it's things that are coming out in rotations or in seasons, and I can keep track of all of my items that I would like to be rotating that way. Okay, so for this last section, I'm going to talk about the limitations of Trello, which from my point of view, so far, I see two big ones. Trello is not good at accounting. If you are wanting a tool that will keep track of how much you spent on stuff, or like your fabric stash and how much fabric you have and which fabric you put where, I'm not sure that Trello can do that. Similar with threads, like if you want a thread database, I feel like that's a little bit outside the bounds of Trello's abilities. The other shortcoming is the calendar, or the lack thereof. You can put a due date, you can put a start date, but there's no, like, look at your calendar and see what you stitched every day. That's not something that you can really do here. So you would either need to have a separate tool where you do any of these things, or just set your whole database up somewhere else to begin with. Either way is fine. It's all just about what you want your tools to do for you. For me, I'm not interested in any of the accounting. I don't care. And I'm also not interested in the calendar. I find all of that very overwhelming. I just want to keep track of my projects. Like, I have my very long wish list that I'm not actually going to scroll because it's too long. And I just want to keep track of what I own and where in the process of stitching I have each project. That's it. That's what I care about. And this tool is perfect, again, for me because I can add my photos, I can attach my PDF patterns, I can write down in the description all of the information that is of interest to me, and I am happy. So I hope that this was helpful for other people, and that, if you're having trouble figuring out how to organize your cross-stitch projects, maybe try Trello. Maybe it's for you too. I don't know. Anyways, have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.